The Alchemist, so here's Rapture number 6. Now, the first 5 videos were basically talking about the earlier parts of the book and talking about how things are bad and why things are bad and why they are the way they are. This next section is kind of a cookbook. The writer gives it the title, The Alchemist Cookbook, and that's the next full section. Now, it's referencing, of course, the Anarchist Cookbook, which was written in the 60s, and it basically taught you how to make bombs and such. The idea of this section is to provide some how-tos on our way to developing Meaning 3.0. Now, like any cookbook, you organize each section in recipes, and it's organized that way as well. And the first section is respiration. Now, the first story that he provides is giving an example of how transformational respiration, or what that is, and how breathing can transport someone. In this case, the story was with the didgeridoo. If you're not sure what that is, now, essentially what's going on here is the circular breathing is required. As you can see, he's breathing out and in at the same time. Beyond that, the concentration and the vibration all combine together to create nitric oxide in your bloodstream. That is nitric oxide, or NO, as opposed to nitrous oxide, or N2O, which is laughing gas. We'll go into the difference about what that is later, but I was confused at the time, so I thought I would make that reference. Essentially, nitric oxide is a very short-lived, free radical state of oxygen that can lower stress, improve breathing conditions like asthma, and studies suggest it can create a dopamine effect in your brain. The book goes on to have anecdotes from other professions that use breath control, like deep divers and Navy SEALs. Ultimately, through different exercises, you can adjust the amount of oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon that are in your respiratory system. Here's a chart about that. I'll see if I can put a PDF in the notes. If not, I can just send it. The bottom line is this. Breathing in different ways has different effects. We know this instinctively. We breathe slower and deeper when we need to calm down, for example, right? It's the same concept. It's just a little bit more extreme. But wait, what is the why? Why are we even talking about breathing in a cookbook? If you remember the equation that I put together, this partially fills the healing gap of Meaning 3.0. We are still determining the final state, but while we do not have Jesus or Odin or whomever to emotionally heal us magically, we do have the psycho and physio effects that breathing gives us through these exercises. The book shares a few anecdotes about how, when LSD became illegal to use in experiments in the 60s, the doctors used some of these breathing techniques, specifically hyperventilating, to mimic the effects of acid. The effects were shorter-lived, but were similar, apparently. The book also provides the history of nitrous oxide, or laughing gas, and how it was a fun parlor game in the 1830s, and then it was used medically for dentists, as it still is, and then also for the birth of Queen Victoria's children. It's also used to make whipped cream, and it's cheap and legal to buy, but it is illegal to use as a party drug. I sort of wonder if the lawmakers who wrote that laughed at the fact that it's totally unenforceable. Anyway, the book talks about how to use it, which I would be surprised if you didn't already know. Basically, you open a cartridge in a balloon, huff it, get dizzy and silly. The book describes that studies show that nitrogen obtained through breathing exercise or laughing gas or in a nitrogen-oxygen mixture, like in a scuba tank, can all affect delta waves in an EEG. Delta waves are the reparative function of deep sleep. Delta waves are also affected by ketamine, LSD, and other psychoactive drugs. Nitrogen is much cheaper and easier and less illegal. In this retelling, I've removed the interesting anecdotes that generally sell the concept. I mean, didgeridoo players and yoga gurus, extreme divers, mountain climbers, Navy SEALs are all interesting stories. But the bottom line is this: breathing is life. And we know breath affects and how we breathe. Breathing is life. And how we breathe affects the air's elements. So oxygen, nitrogen, or carbon, and various combinations that we take in. The concentrations in and out of those elements can either feed us or starve us and provide us, potentially, a path to transcendence. So let's go through some of these. Again, on that chart, the first one is a slow pattern. This is slow, deep, and symmetrical. Like, the idea here is that you're getting full air exchange. It's improved oxygenation and provides a down regulation. It's stress management. It's attention training for general health. The next is hyperventilation, which is, only you're going to do it longer, 50 breaths at least. And this provides an effect, and I believe I looked it up to say alkalosis. It doesn't matter. Look it up. But it causes dizziness, numb hands, and confusion. And the reason why it does that is because of reduced CO2 in your blood. And as in essence, an abundance of regular oxygen. This state was used in those LSD studies that I mentioned a minute ago. It creates some form of psychological introspection. It's also good for trauma support. Now, if somebody is uncontrolled in their hyperventilation, then you'll need to have a paper bag or something like that to help them not lose so much of that CO2. That's what the paper bag is for, to help them get back into a normal rhythm. So I guess have a paper bag handy if you're going to try it. The next is something called vagal breathing, and it's a 10-4 inhalation or 10 to 4 exhalation inhalation. So that means you inhale completely, you swallow, which stimulates the vagal nerve, which the vagal nerve is the primary nerve that goes through your body. Hold it for 4 heartbeats, and then exhale longer than you inhaled, and then hold that for 6 heartbeats, and leave and repeat that for 15 minutes. Now, this also is a downregulation of your nervous system, and increases vagal tone. And again, the vagal nerve is the longest individual nerve in your body, and it affects almost everything in the lower part of your body. I mean, it's kind of like your second brain in some respects. This can also provide, this type of breathing can also be a decreased heart rate. So the idea here is, again, you breathe in, and then you swallow. And you do that for several moments. And again, that's intended to be for stress management. Box breathing, which is even duration inhale, exhale, is basically you count to 5 breathing in, you count to 5 breathing out, and you hold in between to a count of 5 also. So this is a downregulation of the flight freeze instinct. So again, it calms your anxiety. It's stress management. and it's mindfulness training. If you think about it, a lot of meditation talks a lot about how you try to breathe in and breathe out and all that various different things. This is basically a type of, because you have to concentrate on how much you're breathing in and how much you're breathing out, and when you're breathing out, you're so wrapped up in that concentration that you are able to be in that moment and allow yourself some mindfulness. And as it becomes a little bit more instinctive, again, you can do the activity and allow your mind to just go. Pressure breathing, or pursed lips exhalation. So that's a regular normal breath in and then almost a whistle. So that's supposed to give you increased cardio, another vagal tone, vagal nerve toning, and oxygen saturation. So basically what this is doing is it's helping you increase the amount of oxygen without necessarily doing the full hyperventilation. It's kind of the one step below that. This is the type of breathing that you would use if you're walking in the high mountains, for example, because it becomes really important to equalize things because you don't have as much oxygen up there. It's also good for people who have obstructed breathing diseases like asthma and that kind of thing, or anybody who is getting to go into an anaerobic sport of some sort. So that's, your swimmers or that kind of thing. The whole idea here is just getting you prepared, it's getting you oxygenated up. If you watch the Olympic swimmers, for example, they do this. So they'll do that kind of breathing before they get into the pool, and then they're ready to go. And the whole idea is that they want to have as much oxygen in their blood as they can possibly have so that they can use it while they're going. The next one was nasal breathing with vibrations. And essentially that's what we saw with the didgeridoo, because one of the things that you have to do, a didgeridoo is you play it kind of like a kazoo, in the sense that as you're breathing, you're making, or as you're exhaling, you're putting a little bit of a vibrato into the reed. So so that's basically breathing in and out through your mouth and nose, but providing yourself a little bit of a vibration. That vibration can help create some of that nitric oxide, which, again, if you look at it on a molecular level, the reason why nitric oxide is 2 nitrogens to 1 oxygen has to do with the number of electrons. Nitrogen, or oxygen, has space for extra electrons, and so it wants to not be alone. So that's why it will combine up to 3. Ozone is 3 oxygens stuck together. And the reason why it does that on an atomic level is because it's got those extra electrons, or it's got extra space. So what this does is it's breaking up and putting 1 nitrogen, 1 oxygen together. It's helping that process, and it is changing the way that you're breathing there. And that's basically... and if you think about it, a lot of times when you see people meditating, like gurus, yoga people meditating, they'll often be vocalizing as they breathe out. Anyway, so that's basically the first chapter. I'm going to go ahead and tell you about the second chapter too, or the next chapter, which is Recapture 7. Essentially, this is a book, a chapter that's full of a bunch of anecdotes, but it boils down to this. Humans are animals. Bottom line, humans are animals. We are part of nature. We are not a separated thing of nature. We are a part of nature. We exist within nature. We are animals, no better or no worse than your dog, or your cat, or the great ape at the zoo. And if we can remember that we're really not any better than an animal, then maybe we can integrate ourselves into this world a little bit differently. So that's just something to think about, and part of our equation as well. Anyway, so that's Rapture 6 and 7. I am continuing to read it. I'm not reading too far ahead because I wanted to, I want to try to, well, I've just have been busy. So now I just need to edit this. I love you all.